I think if anyone is using a cannabis crystal ball to make any big decisions, they're full of shit right now.
Welcome to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top dispensary owners and experts in this space so that you can stay up to date with the latest trends and strategies that you'd otherwise miss out on. I hope you enjoy this episode. Tony, welcome to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. Thank you for hopping on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So for the audience, please tell us who you are, the name of your store, or in your situation, stores, and where you're located.
Yeah, my name's Tony Birch. I own 5 retail stores in the Portland, Oregon area. We've got 2 brands, Mint Cannabis Company, which has 2 locations. It's kind of our more elevated, I hate to compare it to Apple, but like Apple vibes retail experience.
Sure.
We've got 3 under the Broadway Cannabis market name. Those are very Oregon vibes, kind of premium without the price is the model there. It's a kind of a nice, warm wood environment, kind of Starbucks vibe to put it in a visual way, but with not the traditional markup in those locations. So we've got 3 locations in downtown Portland. We're the largest retailer in the downtown area. And then we've got 1 on the east side of Portland and then 1 on the west side of Portland. Actually, it's in a city called Beaverton. So those are our retail stores. And then we've got some CPG brands as well. Fire department cannabis, and then Feel Goods is the sister company to that. Fire department is kind of a higher end, medium to higher end brand, and then Feel Goods is more of our kind of bulk brand. Still high quality products, but everything's 2 gram type situation. So 2 gram buckets of extract. We just launched a 2 gram vaporizer, which is a very unique thing in Oregon. They just did a rule change that allowed us to do that. So we got first to market with a 2 gram vape here. And then we do like 10 pack, 20 pack, 40 pack of pre-rolls. So all bulk focused there versus the fire department brand, which is rosin infused edibles, dry ice extracted keef, some kind of higher end pre-rolls, and some, the higher end stuff there. So
nice. So it sounds like you got a lot going on. Really excited to kind of deep dive into both sides of the brand because, just had another guest on and, that was a whirlwind. Just because you're in cannabis doesn't mean that, retail and CPG are, let's say the easiest thing to do by any means. But, before we get into all that stuff, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of, what was your life before getting into the cannabis space?
Yeah, it seems like a long time ago now. I've been in it for 10 years. March 1st was 10 years. Before that, though, I have a degree in renewable energy and was in the solar industry, doing solar energy powered residential and commercial projects there, and basically started growing medical cannabis on the side. Just all of a sudden, I was like, I'm making more money and enjoying this more on the cannabis side, and ended up quitting solar to go full into cannabis at 2014, and I was 22 when I made that switch, and just been grinding for the last 10 years.
There you go. Were you always interested in the renewable space? Because I know that is another kind of trending industry, at least right now anyways. But were you always interested in kind of that side of the business before, I guess, cannabis took off?
Totally. Yeah, I think renewables are incredibly fascinating. Oregon is very ahead of the curve with those things. So Oregon in general was, there was a lot of tax incentives early on. And so a lot of solar was available to the market. It was a great industry, and always have kind of thought highly of renewables. And then actually when pivoted from solar into cannabis, it was a cannabis grow was the first step out of full-time into cannabis. Full-time was into a grow facility, and it was all renewable focused. We had recaptured watering. We were doing, the LEDs weren't really nearly at the level that they're at now. So we didn't do LEDs, but we did double-ended Gavitas, but they were on light movers. So we'd have a row where it'd be 5 lights, but we'd have them on movers. So we'd only use 4 lights. We were using veganic nutrients, have your opinion on that, however you may, but we were really trying to be like a sustainable grow at that time. We ended up selling that facility after about 1.5 years or 2 years. But yeah, it was very renewable focused at the time.
Oh, nice. So 10 years ago, about 2013, 2014, similarly to the renewable space, how LEDs weren't, mainstream at the time. Now there's cannabis. So as you can imagine, or probably as you have lived through it all, you probably went through a lot of issues, challenges, so on and so forth, as being, one of the OGs in the space, one of the pioneers in this space. So walk me through that transition from solar or renewables to kind of cannabis. I know looking back, it's easy to say, hey, making more money in this venture, I'm going to hop on over. But what was that actual transition like? Was there like pushback from your social circle? Was it something you were like, I'm going to do this anyways? How was that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think especially from outsiders, and the family's always been very supportive of the
Sure.
change. But you're leaving a good job to do what? Grow weed in a warehouse in 2014? That was a very bizarre thing back then. But just did it. It was super passionate and just kind of made it work. It never goes as planned. Did the everything takes twice as long and costs twice as much. And so I had the money fully self-funded from the get-go. We've got no partners. And so I had this little nest egg. I was like, yeah, this could probably start up a grow. Evaporated that money, non-existent, maxing out credit cards, sold my personal vehicle to buy a shitty little truck. And that was like 6 months after I made the switch into cannabis. And I was like, man, maybe this wasn't the move. And so at the time I was living in a decent loft in downtown Portland, didn't have the money for the loft. And so I was like, okay, I'll save some money on rent and I'll move into the grow. It'll be 3 months most. I lived at this grow for 20 months because I just kept dumping the money back in. I didn't want to spend any money outside of like bare minimum expenses, groceries, that's it. And then just lived at this grow facility for 20 months. Thankfully, there was a shower there. Actually, it was only a year. Once I got in, I subleased a portion of the building that had the shower, so I had to go to my mom's for like 10 months every other day to shower. So definitely had the hustle there. But after 20 months of just dumping it back in, ended up selling that facility, and it worked out just fine. But man, there were a few months where it was a little close.
We were talking about the propensity for risk in entrepreneurship, and I was saying how I think inherently jumping into entrepreneurship and starting a business is on the quote unquote riskier side of things because you're going ahead and kind of doing things and not getting the quote unquote stable job. But I would say my own kind of risk assessment is more so on the safer side from entrepreneurship, but it seems like you're on the further side. So were you always this kind of risky, did you always jump into the deep end of the pool to try and, conquer things?
I'd say it's everything's a calculated risk. It's all calculated. So definitely
sure.
Identifying a risk, analyzing it, and seeing what is the potential return there. Mm-hmm. I was young at the time. I'm still young. So the risk of like, okay, maybe I try this and fail, I can always revert to plan B. Now that thought is increasingly, a little scary as time goes on. But no, everything we do is a calculated risk. And especially now at the scale that we're at, we've got smart people in the organization. Deals and expansion ideas are heavily analyzed, but still sometimes I'll pull people into a meeting and, all right, hear me out on this, guys, and then I'll make some sort of pitch and then we'll talk through it. But yeah, definitely we lean into risk, but it's with increased analyzing these days. I don't know if that answers your question, but
right. I mean, you have to, when you're a kid, it's just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do the thing. I'm going to burn my hand on the stove. It's okay. You have like, you can reverse the mistake, right? Slap a Band-Aid on the thing and then you're pretty much good to go. As you get older and there are other stakeholders, there are other partners, you have your employees and staff and things like that. It's a little bit more precarious to be able to say, hey, I'm going to risk it all on this one thing and try and make it work. So that's something I definitely admire in people, is being able to take the risk, but have the calculations in the back of their head to be like, okay, this is something that I'm going to take a risk on because I believe in whatever calculations I did. So that's awesome. On that, so something that's not as risky, but it is risky in a sense of like, you're not really sure what works. Sometimes it's a very subjective subject. No one's going to tell you about this and say, hey, this is the thing that you absolutely need to do. And that comes to marketing. Everyone apparently has their way of doing marketing, bringing awareness and conversions and stuff like that in. Kind of what's your general marketing mix? How you bring in customers into the fold?
I think we've tried almost all traditional marketing that's allowed in cannabis. Oregon, thankfully, is pretty open to what you can do as far as marketing: billboards, magazines, and those things. I know some states prohibit a lot of those marketing outlets, but we've done the billboard game. We've done the magazine ads. We've done direct mail. We've done SEO optimization is something we're increasingly pushing into. That one's always tough because it doesn't feel like you're actually getting, it's a very hard thing to gauge. But as we continue to push online sales, we're definitely leaning into SEO. We've got some companies that we've worked with to help us rank there. We have a pretty robust rewards program across all locations. And so we've got, thankfully, a pretty healthy amount of people that have opted into a rewards program. And then with that, obviously, we get SMS and email opportunity to send out deals, which even that can be difficult with the deliverability rates in certain carriers is difficult. So navigating that's been fun. But I think we've hit a lot of the angles we can. CPG stuff, though, the brands, sounds so basic, but in-store assets has been the thing for us. It's so not sexy, but signage, any type of signage, Sintra, plastic displays, window clings, little thing, even simple as that. We do logos that go into windows, so then we get visibility from the street. So light up signs, we can get made pretty inexpensively in bulk, and so we'll give those for free to retailers. So we get some high visibility there. What's been really fun, actually, recently, our brand Fire Department Cannabis, we've pre-rolls is kind of our bread and butter. And so we've been handing out, it's kind of a cheeky thing, but it's a 4-foot tall 10-pack cigarette style box. And so everyone wants to take a photo or jump out of it. And so little things like that have been oddly successful. Then retail, of course, this is another non-sexy answer, but high visibility locations, easy access. When we do look at a location, we just analyze what's the population within a mile, how many dispensaries within this mile potentially, and doing calculations like that. In big buildings, if we can get them right, this is also kind of maybe a bizarre one. Portland real estate's definitely been in a slump lately. The last post-COVID, we've kind of struggled to rebound, and so real estate's been really inexpensive. So we've been able to lock down nice prime buildings in great locations. They may be rough. That's a big thing for us, is finding a building that needs a lot of work and doing the elbow grease to turn it around. And so right now our headquarters in downtown Portland is a 30,000 square foot 4-story building. I think it's the biggest dispensary in the state. We've got a 4-story mural on the front. It's a big botanical, it's like a silhouette of a cannabis plant. And it took 9 months of permitting with the city to get that approved. We had to get letters of recommendation, but you cannot walk by this building and be like, damn, it's a cool mural. It's very, very visual. And so we've done that. Right. We've got murals we've got another one going up in the next couple of weeks. So 3 of our 5 locations will have murals. So being highly visible has been an oddly simple tactic for us. Signage, we have very nice signage. The building we're in right now, sorry, I'm rambling on what's unsexy marketing.
No, I love it. I love it. I find it really interesting when people are super passionate about these like really niche, quote unquote, boring things like signage and like getting things out there. So by all means, don't feel, keep on talking, because that's completely
fine. It's such a silly, stupid thing. Signage, it seems so old school, but I mean, we nerd out on our signage. We allocate a lot of budget to signage. Our main building down here, the headquarters, like I said, the downtown one, the large one, 30,000 square feet. We got a sign grandfathered in. It's a big vertical kind of marquee style sign. City of Portland allows 32 square feet for signage to current code. This sign, we begged and pleaded and said, well, what if we reface it and it's technically not a new sign? And they said, okay, that's fine. Again, 9 months of permitting. Thank you, City of Portland. So now, rather than a 32 square foot sign, we have a 150 square foot massive sign right on Broadway, which is our main drag in Portland. I mean, you can't beat location. And then if you magnify that with a mural and a massive sign, I mean, there's a lot of marketing opportunity out there, but when it comes to brick and mortar, that's hard to beat, in my opinion.
Right. So on those signs, so effectively you're finding these kind of old, dilapidated buildings where presumably they're not generating any revenue for the landlord or whoever's in charge of, that signage in itself. And you're essentially saying, hey, what is the value add for both my business and for whoever owns this piece of property? And then how can we work together to kind of essentially get these little pieces of physical real estate? The SEO is you get digital real estate because you have people searching online with Google, and now you're essentially finding physical real estate. You're building out different pages, but in the physical space. That's kind of how it works?
Totally. And I think a lot of cannabis people, if they're getting in, they underestimate the real estate side of the game. And it is a huge piece. But even if you're just doing processing or production, you still need to find the warehouse and negotiate that property and know the zoning rules. But brick and mortar, like we look at it as a real estate deal. It's like we're looking for distressed assets. The building we're in now was vacant for like 3 years. just covered in graffiti. And we went to the landowner and building owner. We said, hey, here's our track record. We can whip this thing in shape. We're going to want some concessions here. And so we've got a smoking deal. It doesn't ramp up to maturity of rent for 5 years. And even at that 5-year point, it's still, in my opinion, under market. Another building, our most recent one on the east side, another Mint location. That's a 10,000 square foot building, totally covered in graffiti, boarded up when we got it. And then we came in and said, hey, we'll make a deal with you. And we ended up making a deal because we put a bunch of TIs into it. And then, 6 months later, the landlord left us because we just, flipped his building for him. But we get rent concessions, so it all works out. And that's on a highway, 60,000 vehicles per day, slam dunk location. So
impressive. That's crazy. So on the CPG side of things too, that's kind of like your philosophy, where you mentioned that the retail side on CPG is being able to kind of do these guerrilla marketing strategies and stuff like that is one of the main reasons why you're able to excel on that side of the business too, right?
Yeah, totally. So we've got our own brand. So first I guess I'll back up a little bit, give some further context here. When I got into the industry in 2014,
sure.
I started this company and I ended up selling that company in 2019, in February of 2019, exited that. And then 5 months later in July, it started our first retail store. So there was kind of a create company one, exit, go to zero. And then 5 years ago now is when we started the first dispensary and then started all over again. So when I kind of reference these things, it's on like the second piece of the 10-year journey, 5 years in. So we started the dispensary, and about 6 months later, we had the NDA was up from exiting the previous company, and it was I kind of miss making cannabis products. So we created another brand. It was Fire Department Cannabis, and that was actually was intended to be distributed to other retailers primarily. And then obviously it was like, well, of course we'll vertically integrate, sell into our stores. And then we realized actually this works really well. They're doing well at third party. We sell to probably 300 plus stores in the state. And then we sell to our own stores now. And it's about 20% of our stores revenue comes from our vertical products. And the margins on those are unbeatable. So it wasn't originally the plan to be able to have the vertical products to sell in the store for the increased margin. But it's such a, I mean, it's not a new model. All the MSOs do it and whatnot, but it's awesome. It's a must have. It's definitely an extra step. We have another facility that manufactures all these things. We have additional licenses out there. We have a team of 50 people in that facility that all they do is make the products. So it's definitely not something you can just half-ass and be like, okay, we have a store. I'm going to go start a CPG brand. You got to have some real thought there, but it's worth it.
A little bit more than saying I'm going to start this thing just because I have a retail shop.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you would have some really interesting insight on this as well. So I know that there's an interesting relationship, and all the headlines that you see about, this massive company hasn't paid their bills, we did this on consign or whatever it is, right? And they haven't done that. So what would you say are keys to managing a relationship from the vendor side to the retailer side? And then I guess the opposite way as well, from the retail side to the vendor side. Because as long as you guys work together and you're friendly and all those fun things, great. But, there are some underlying foundations where it doesn't matter how friendly you are. If you don't have these things in place, then it's going to be a problem. So how would you look at it from both sides of the equation? What advice, I guess, would you give to the retailers to say, hey, what would you do to have better relationship with your vendors, and then vice versa, vendors then with retailers?
That's a good question. And I think we're at a unique spot where we're totally in the middle, where we've got a healthy wholesale side where we sell to the retailers. And then we've got obviously a healthy retail side where we deal with a lot of vendors coming in. And from a retail, as a retail operator's side of how do you have good relationships with vendors, pay your bills. Just pay your bills, pay your people on time. It's not that tough.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated on the wholesale side when retailers don't pay us. We have a ton in AR. We just do. And it's frustrating. And so that's how you maintain good relationships as a retailer. Pay your vendors. Not only pay your vendors, but make it as easy on them as possible. There's so many diva intake managers in the industry. I've told us, the team from day one, we are not going to be that diva shop. We're not going to be them. We're going to make it easy on them. They've got enough of their own stuff they're dealing with. Make it easy on them. So paying them on time and paying them. And can't speak on other states, but we pay via check. We mail you a check. We make it easy as possible. It's so common practice in Oregon where, say we're on the wholesale side, fire department or field goods, we deliver product. It's on, say, in terms, net 15 or whatever, and they say, well, come back and grab your cash. And it's like, okay, great. So we deliver products to you, and then we have to drive back to you for an hour, and then grab our cash, not doing a delivery because you're not quite ready yet, but you hit terms. It's just a terrible model. What big industry are they making vendors run around and grab cash? It's really difficult. So making it easy on vendors, doing checks, and then on the retail or the wholesale side, the customer's always right. The retailer is your customer in that scenario. Do whatever you need. If there's a label mishap, address it quickly. If there's any type of dispute, just do whatever. We have cartridges. Of course, there's a fail rate. Just return them, no questions asked. Any promos they want to do them, no questions asked. They'll come to you. You want to be spotlighted like that. And I was going to say speed and communication is a big thing, but I'll kind of give it a anecdotal story on speed. About a year and a half ago, we were thinking, how can we do something different in Oregon? We can do next day delivery. That's no problem. And we said, how about we do same day delivery? And so we did a big push. And the whole model was, if you place your order in the qualifying zip codes in the Portland Metro, if you place your order by noon, we'll get it out to you that day by 5. We did this. We spent a bunch of money on it. And then we realized no one gave a shit. No one cared. B2B, we realized it wasn't that big of a deal. We kept thinking the Amazon model, people want it so fast, but that's more of a B2C to the end consumer. B2B, like, I'm sorry, the 22-year-old intake manager that placed the order, they don't give a shit if they get it the same day. They didn't give a shit really if they get it tomorrow. So we realized we solved a problem that didn't exist. It was great. It was kind of fun. It got a lot of conversation going, but it was ultimately not necessary, and we killed it. And we thought we were going to add a lot of value for that, for the dispensary. Like, oh shit, it's Friday. I need pre-rolls before the weekend. And we ultimately realized they didn't care that much. It was super expensive to do. So we squashed it.
How long did you try to run that campaign before you said this is probably not a thing that is ROI positive? Yeah,
we failed fast on it. Less than 90 days. We got it up pretty quick. Probably took us 60. We integrated some software. We hired drivers. We bought cars. Took about 60 days to ramp it, launched it, marketed it heavily, and then saw it never take off. And we're like, for the cost of this, after 90 days, kill it. So we took the L on that one quick.
That makes sense. I mean, so whoever's listening, don't go out your way to offer same day delivery unless you just have a lot of money to blow, it seems.
That is a fact. Yes.
Honestly, side note, just from a tactic standpoint, you're like, this is insane. One of the things that we talk about a lot, like in this space, is like the secrecy of, the world of cannabis and all these different things and stuff like that. Right. And it's kind of like unlike other kind of businesses where you see a lot of people going online mentoring. You see like kind of the people higher up in the business point being like, hey, yeah, you should try this, and this. Right. Because realistically, you're going to say something, 3 sentences in this podcast. And then if those 3 sentences were enough for a competitor to come in and absolutely steamroll you, then you probably didn't have enough of a foundation of a business to really begin with, right? So, I really appreciate your transparency with a lot of these things because this is really awesome. And I think it's going to be super helpful because not only do we have kind of just your regular people listening, we do have people from places where, this isn't even legal. So they're not even at the point where it's like they can even begin discussing about signage. They're really just doing the lottery and getting their licenses, speaking with they're at that stage of the business, right? Oh, yeah. So, it's just wanted to say really appreciate you kind of sharing these things because I know, when it comes to some of the strategies and the tactics, like the signage and stuff like that, not a lot of people are open and willing to share that. But, just wanted to say just firsthand, really appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah, totally. Happy to do it.
Awesome. So we left off kind of where you were discussing a lot of the, I guess the relationships between the vendors and the retailers, and then the retailers with the vendors and stuff like that. One thing that you mentioned was that you want to, or you say that the customer is always right from the vendor to retailer standpoint, right? At what point is a customer not right? Where you're like, enough is enough. Like this is, I'm not going to do that. Obviously you don't tell them to, screw off or anything like that. Or maybe you do, but when is enough enough?
Oh, that retail. I'll say retail in downtown Portland is tough. It is. There is still a lot of things that City of Portland needs to address, and so unfortunately, due to that, we get a lot of customers that we don't really want in the store. We've had some pretty unfortunate interactions. So I'd say that, which is crazy because some of the stories I could tell you, you'd be like, that happened. We had someone come and do some damage to some cases that was just out of their mind. And so that creates some issues with staff retention, morale, obviously, but zero tolerance for that level of stuff. I mean, if anytime a customer comes in and you'd be kind of surprised for a dispensary. Some people just come in and they're mean and they say mean things. There's zero tolerance for that. So that's more when there's zero tolerance. We're pretty lax with returns and things like that. But sometimes people just get nasty, and that's where we have zero tolerance. On the wholesale side, we're pretty lax. It's B2B, so people are usually pretty cordial. Where we draw the line, honestly, the biggest thing is just AR. If you're in the amount of people that are in our 60 plus past due AR is insane. And we have to just have the conversation, be like, guys, we're not delivering anymore. We can't. We've delivered 13 times and you haven't paid an invoice. We've got to draw the line. We're sorry. We like you. But we need to get paid. This isn't charity work. So yeah, that's where we draw the line. We try not to get that far, but it is what it is.
And yes, anyways, yes, receivables. it's a just that one word kind of like brings back some trauma in a lot of people, I think, in all different businesses. So let's not. Trust me, I'm with you on that. So you also mentioned that the kind of interactions with customers on the retail side, it does have some impact on kind of staff and employees, because obviously if you have customers that are breaking a bunch of cases where you have some sort of level of physical danger, that obviously causes an issue. So do you do anything to kind of prepare your staff for that? Is that more of a reactive versus proactive thing? Do you say, hey, this doesn't normally happen, but if this does happen, we're prepared to help you and support you in any way possible? Kind of like, what does that look like when it comes to, kind of training and, training staff?
Yeah, it's a good question. De-escalation is something we've tried to teach as much as possible. Anything from kind of certain things to say, your body language, how to address someone. 99% of the time, it just takes some talking to. Calm them down. If they've got an unreasonable request of if they've got here's an example, a cartridge return where it's, they've sucked down 95% of the cartridge and clearly pulling a fast one. And I'm like, well, man, it's pretty much empty here. And they start making a fuss. Give them the cartridge, get them out, treat them nice, de-escalate it, address the situation. So we do try and get ahead of it from a training perspective. City of Portland, I will say, they do have a pretty good. It's called clean and safe. It's a basically more or less security that are spread out throughout the city, and you can call them and they can be there quite quick if there's an actual issue. Panic buttons if need be. So we try and provide all that stuff. The training is a big piece. And yeah, we do what we can, but it's tough, and you can't make everyone happy with the solutions that we have available, but we try.
Right.
But before we continue, if you're enjoying this episode and are looking for some marketing help for your own dispensary, you can check us out at cannabudmarketing.com or visit us in the links in the description below. Now, on to the rest of the episode.
And then on the employee side, so you probably have X amount of employees, like a lot, between all the brands, and all the stores and stuff like that. So for the people who want to get into cannabis as part of an organization such as yours, how do they typically stand out from, the other applicants? Because what I'm seeing is that, hey, I consume, I smoke, I would like to work at a retail shop. I think I'm a good fit. Like I'm seeing a decent amount of that around. What are some of the differentiating factors that go into you seeing or kind of like hiring somebody that you feel is, worthy of being on your team?
Yeah. And I guess it depends on where they want to fit in the organization. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been a mega stoner. I still consume every day in the evenings, and there's still the 20-something-year-old, stoner bro to the core. It may not be, management or upper management material quite yet, but if you're knowledgeable on the product and you're a super user fan and endorse it, bud tend away. Like, we can plug you in. Alternatively, if you're maybe beyond that and you're still experienced, there's management opportunities. So it just kind of depends where you're at.
Mhm.
And the reality is, maybe the super stoner bro doesn't want to be a manager, and he's just
Okay.
happy to talk weed for 8 hours a day. Love it. Join the team. If you fit the culture, you're positive, you're educated. Come on.
Mhm.
Alternatively, if you are maybe not that into it, or you just acknowledge, or you're interested and you've got a business acumen, we've got our some staff at the C level that are not huge consumers. They're super passionate about it. They obviously know the product, but
Mhm.
they're finance focused, they're marketing focused, they're team driven. So it just kind of depends on where you're at. But at the end of the day, it is all about the outcome. The
Mhm.
team we build, if the fit is culturally a fit, uh, hungry, humble, smart is kind of three things we think about when joining the team. If you fit into those three pillars, you're going to be a good cultural fit, and you're going to produce outcome. So that's what we want, is outcome. That's our
Right.
that's
Right.
our goal.
Do you I don't want to use like in business because it's like you said, it's about performance. But in terms of preferences and stuff like that, are you finding yourself kind of escalating people from, I guess, lower in the totem pole, as you will? Maybe they're a bud tender, then they're a general manager, and then they look at the finances, and then they have acumen for that as well. Is that like a common kind of path, or is it more so you kind of hire from maybe adjacent industries, similar kind of skill set, and then you kind of bring them in from somewhere else?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and that's the advantages of growing, and that some would say disadvantages, but we've gone from inception to we're at 125 employees right now, and some people have wanted to be a part of that growth and ascend, and some people want to just work for the one-off mom and pops. But
Yeah.
as you grow, more opportunities come with that, and without a doubt, we would prefer to hire within. They already know the culture, they know the systems, and so we've had a good amount of people that have started bud tender and worked up to a buyer, or worked up to a director level of management. So we absolutely love being able to pull people up within the ranks. And it's a lot of joy with that, seeing someone start as a bud tender and then exit. We had a woman recently, she was with us for 3.5 years, started as a bud tender, left as director of operations, and just got a kick-ass job outside of the industry. But she said we teed her up for that. She couldn't have been able to go into that without the opportunity to ascend within the organization. And that's a lot of fun to be able to provide that. So absolutely, it's fun to be able to see people grow within it. And of course, there's times where we tap the outside people to come in, and that works out as well. But yeah, kind of all angles necessary.
Right. So, it sounds like you're able to kind of help facilitate the people who are willing to put in the work, whether they decide to stay with you guys for the next 30 years or whatever it is, or decide to kind of, jump ship because, they want to feel fulfillment in, some other aspect. It sounds like you guys do a pretty good job. You're not like, you have to stay with us forever or else, we're not going to refer you to anybody else or anything like that.
No, that's it. And this woman I was who just left, we had a nice conversation on our last day, and it was like, I couldn't be more happy for you. I mean, I said, if you're talking to anyone that's pro growth, it's me. Go run, grow, spread your wings. I'm all for it. I said, there was a quote, I'm going to butcher this, but it's like, you should train your employees to want. I mean, I don't know if to want to leave is the right way, but to be able to leave to a bigger opportunity. So that's a really powerful way to look at it.
Right. So on the product side, after all these interviews, one of the major things is that if you don't have a good quality product, then nothing else really matters because nobody else is coming back. And you have your lab testing, you have people that are just personally, consuming whatever it is, taking it from their internal team and putting it out there. What's your kind of general process on curating product selection?
Kind of just split that into two categories. When it comes to flower, we are increasingly trying to work with farms or producers that we can have large relationships on, meaning not just on the retail side, but we can partner with them on the wholesale side, where we'll get pre-roll material from them or extract from them, and can maybe do larger deals, deal with less people, but do larger deals with those really solid folks. So we're increasingly prioritizing those farms. And then on the CPG side, to the packaged goods side, we keep a good eye on BDS. And so a large chunk of the packaged goods comes from BDS trends, just to make sure we're getting what we already know is popular in the market.
BDS is?
BDS analytics. I don't know what the hell BDS stands for, but
Okay.
it's analytics. So it links to retailers' point of sales, and so it'll tell you what
Okay.
products are selling primarily in the States.
Okay. So sales tracking data to see kind of how products are performing. Okay, perfect.
Yep. So, hey, this brand is doing really well. Hey, this brand has had a lot of growth. It's doing well at other stores. We'll bring it in. We'll try it. So we've got a portion of our budget allocated for, hey, these are the strong and steady folks that we know sell based on the available analytics.
Sure.
And then we've got a portion of budget allocated to trying some up and coming ones, or maybe some really weird ones, some obscure products, and seeing how those go. So there's a set budget and then kind of a play budget when it comes to the packaged goods.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of always tweaking that.
Right. On the product side, are you seeing kind of any trending products coming out? You're like, oh, that's like a really interesting product. Maybe kind of experimental. We'll see how it does in the market. But are you seeing kind of any products coming out these days?
Well, other than fire department and Feel Goods, our brands that are just cutting edge.
Of course.
No, it's fun. I just did a trip to Arizona and it was fascinating. It's always fun to look at other markets, but disposables specifically in Oregon are starting to take off. Like I said, we just did a 2-gram disposable and we think we're cutting edge. Like this is bee's knees. We're the first people to ever do it. And then we go to Arizona and you're like, half the vapes are disposables. They're way ahead of the curve. So it's interesting to see perspective. But as far as just kind of a knee-jerk answer on that, disposables I think are really interesting. You can go down a rabbit hole. We're looking at other hardware. The hardware available for disposables, it's crazy. Do you want a bar? Do you want a box? Do you want half a gram? Do you want 1 gram? Do you want a USB-C charge or non-USB-C charge? Like what's the tank look like? Can it be a custom tank? All these things just for something as simple as a disposable vape. I think that, in my opinion, is a major direction the market's going. So I'm excited to see those.
So as someone who came from the renewable space and presumably has been around a lot of people, renewables, environment, that's kind of like go hand in hand together. Disposables, not environment.
It kills my soul. It does.
Yeah. So do you, what are your thoughts on that? Again, free market's free market. The market decides what they want at the end of the day. If people want disposables, you're going to give them disposable, right? Like that's kind of the name of the game. Is that a direction that you personally would like to see things trending in, or would you like it to be more so back in the, hey, grind your own flour, roll your own rolls, that sort of thing?
Oh, we're a joint company. That's our, through and through, that's our thing is joints. We do a lot of joints. So I'm so pro just like flour, but we also need to keep a pulse on the market.
Of course.
One thing I think that you can do to combat this, and this is something we're going to roll out with our vapes, is responsible disposable options. So, or I shouldn't say options, but ways to dispose of it. So we can get hardware back, dispose it properly, and the battery can actually not get ended up in a landfill. So there's opportunities to do responsible waste allocation with it. Is it laborious and difficult because then you have to then pick up these batteries from retailers? Yes, but is there a marketing opportunity? You have a branded box in the store that they're dropping this into. They're having it with them more because they're bringing it back to the store. Hopefully, going to buy that product on a repeat. So, as much as it kills me to have a disposable, 10 years ago, if anything disposable, I'd have been like, we're never doing it. But there's responsible ways to do it. The market's leaning that way, and so it's something we have to be cautious of. So, and two, the 510 threads, the 510 typicals. I mean, I could open my drawer right now, and I've got 85 batteries. So it's like, they hand batteries out like it's candy. So are we really sliding that backwards into the negative by doing disposables when they hand out 510 batteries that last just as long as the disposable? To me, it might be a bit of a wash. So
yeah. I mean, on the environmental side, you have the whole, what's the LCA of the entire, the life cycle assessment of the entire process of everything that's going on, right? And you see, kind of when I think Tesla's a really good example. Tesla batteries, great, no gas, great. And then you kind of look at like the overall kind of life cycle of, how the batteries are mined, what happens to a Tesla once they're done, that sort of thing, right? And then, I'm not on one side or the other, but it's just like the data is the data at the end of the day. And it's like, I think a lot of people need to take into consideration the entire picture. So, when it comes to these disposables, again, when you compare this to, again, like let's say car batteries now, right? Like one little battery like this compared to these massive cars, and what are they doing with these like monumental power banks that are just like, what's happening with those, right? So then you can kind of like always compare from the environmental side, like what's going on. But it is something I'm just relatively interested to kind of keep my tabs on, and I'm sure as you are as well.
Same. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. So overall, you've been in the game for 10 years, right? Where do you see the next, I guess few years coming in the future? You look into your crystal ball and be like, okay, Tony's crystal ball says.
I think if anyone is using a cannabis crystal ball to make any big decisions, they're full of shit right now. There's too much. There's so much unknown right now with rescheduling. What's the timing? What's the outcome? What does that look like? There's so many layers to the idea of rescheduling. It's fun to kind of keep up on the articles coming out of people theorizing what that looks like, good, bad, and ugly. So right now we're being very cautious on long-term strategic moves and just kind of being cautious. We've got stuff in the pipeline, but we're going to be cautious. Something I find especially interesting with the rescheduling opportunity is the real estate. I keep coming back to the real estate. If and when rescheduling happens, the real estate game is going to change. It's going to open up a lot of opportunity there. And so what would have been a slam dunk location pre-rescheduling may be a C- location because now you can pop up into, right next to a Starbucks.
Sure.
Obviously, landlords and more conventional investors might be a little more conservative and not allow cannabis use. But again, we don't know how that's going to shake out. So we're being cautious. Not to be a pessimist, but yeah, we're just being cautious and we don't know what it looks like. But on our little Oregon bubble, I wanted to point this out because this is like hot off the press in Oregon. Last week, they passed a bill and now Oregon is officially a limited license state. There's a moratorium, might as well just say indefinitely, moratorium on issuing new licenses until issued licenses hit a certain ratio. I forget the exact numbers, but it's more or less the state will not issue any more retail licenses until it gets to one dispensary license per 12,500 people in the state, which is going to reduce it down to like 350 licenses. Right now there's like 800. So natural attrition, which is happening. There's a lot of stores that are going to go under the next 12 months in Oregon. There's too many, but not enough people to support it. And there's a lot in really terrible locations. So those licenses will disappear and the market will eventually get back to, look, if you've got a good location, you're doing fine, but attrition needs to happen with the license. So everyone's very excited in Oregon that we are finally a limited license state. We're not like Oklahoma where there's 17 dispensaries per one person in that state. So we're really excited. So that outcome, we'll see how that pans out in the medium term.
Right. So I was having a conversation with, it was a guest like out in Arizona. Again, rescheduling to different people mean different things because as you say, like it can mean one thing in one area and another thing in a different area. And it's just like, what is going to happen, right? So in an ideal world for you, what would you like to see in the next little while? Obviously within reason, probably another 5-10 years, but once the dust has kind of settled, where would you like it to settle?
Interstate commerce is going to be an interesting thing, and that's a hot topic, at least on the West Coast, just because we've got Washington, Oregon, California that could do that quite easily. And there's a lot of interesting debates about that. And is it going to kill the small people? Is it going to benefit the small people because they'll have a larger market to go into? And again, is it going to hurt the smaller, specifically the Oregon people? I think Oregonians are like, oh, interstate commerce is great. We can then go to Oregon and Washington. But it's like, well, Oregonian companies can go to Washington and California. But alternatively, California and Washington companies are licking their chops wanting to go into their other states. So it's going to be interesting. We look at the beer markets, kind of a good comparison, in my opinion. When you travel, a lot of times, you're like, what's the local IPA? I want to try that. So people still, I think, are going to be loyal to local brands. So that is just my theory of a safety net for that context. But I don't know if totally descheduling is going to happen. I think that's a long game. I don't think that's a 5-year plan. I think rescheduling will happen, and the dust from that's going to take a while. So I guess in my opinion, my crystal ball would be rescheduling would happen. It's going to open banking opportunities. It's going to open real estate opportunities. It's going to create a ton of confusion at the federal level. Taxing is going to be a massive win for us. So in my opinion, if we could just get rescheduling and get it done right and affect those 3 areas, banking, real estate, and taxes, that is a massive win. So that would be wins across the board.
All right. So for now, if you were to hedge your bets against California versus the rest, you're sticking with the rest for now, anyways.
Say again. What do you mean?
So California, like you said, so interstate commerce, right? Being able to take product from point A to point B, where California, their market can essentially they're the big sharks. They're the big players in the space and can kind of take over, wherever they realistically want to. And we say we don't actually know who the big players are going to make that jump. But you mentioned that people still like purchasing local, they're loyal to local, and stuff like that. So, if that opens up, you would say that local is still the way to go over, let's say, a California coming to take over.
I think that's tough. I think in my mind is so hyper-focused on the Oregon bubble.
Sure.
I think it depends. Well, Oregon is such a price-conscious market, so price-conscious, where local loyalty may go to the sidelines is if really aggressive commodity pricing comes in, and there's a lot of lower income areas in Oregon.
Sure.
And if they can bring a 10-pack of joints in for $2, I'm sorry, most people are going to buy that $2 pack of joints, even frankly, despite the quality, just like people are buying PBR and the basic loggers, mass-produced Coors of the world.
Yeah,
very price-driven purchasing decision. That's where I think those companies are going to have the most muscle. But I still think there's going to be a local loyalty piece and a quality piece that's going to be undeniable.
Right.
You either drink an IPA or you drink a Coors Light. Very, very, it's very unlikely that you're going to drink both. So I think there's going to be the IPA drinkers that are going to continue to buy the higher end local cannabis products. I'm sure someone's going to get mad. I made an alcohol reference on a weed podcast, but whatever.
It's fine. It's fine. So would you do this all over again? And if you would, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I totally. I mean, it's been a catalyst. It's been an absolute game changer for a lot of things. What to do differently? I would bring. I was stubborn early on because I was so financially conscious about saving as much money as possible, which was necessary early on. But I would have, at an earlier stage in the company, brought smart supportive help, whether it was sales management with the first company. But that's been, I think everyone beats that concept to death. But surround yourself with smart people. Surround yourself with people that can do things you can't do better. I'm decent with finance, but I'm not a CFO. Bring someone that's really good at finance. Managing the store general managers. I don't really have the time for that. Bring someone in that does that and is a super people person and a good leader. Surround yourself by people that are better at you where you lack. So simple. I wish I would have done that early on. But as far as doing things differently, I feel very good about what we've done in a relatively short amount of time with a relatively restricted budget without partners, and just
How would you go about finding those people?
Networking has been really powerful. Networking is a long game. It is a lot of meetings, a lot of networking events, but networking and just doing business. Sometimes networking events are absolutely, they're painful. But I've said this before, is I think the best networking comes from working. People, like, if I meet someone at a networking event, great. But if I meet someone doing a deal or they're working for another company that goes really well, that's the best networking possible. You've already done an interview with them. So just getting out there and doing it, that's how you meet people. It's not going to I'm sure, I've met people at happy hours, but most times you go to a happy hour networking and it is not the quality of people you want to meet. So just get out there, work, meet people, go do stuff. That's mine.
Yeah. So, I'm doing this like an interesting kind of little segment about interacting between the next guests and stuff like that. So, so the next interview or guest owner that I'll have on, what question would you have for another dispensary owner that you're curious about?
That's an interesting one. What question would I have for a dispensary owner? Do they also get premature gray hairs at the rate that I've been getting them? No, I'm kidding. That's a good question. I think I can keep coming back to real estate. How are they finding their locations? If they're multi-location, how are they finding the locations? That is the biggest long game. if you're in retail, or even if you're trying to find any cannabis real estate, you better be prepared to get a lot of no's, and a lot of mean no's at that. It's just not. It's even in Oregon, it's still not the most accepted thing. So that is the biggest thing for me if it's a retailer that's looking to expand. How are they getting the locations?
Sure, nice. And then the question that the previous owner asked was, how do you deal with the increased competition due to so many dispensaries popping up?
Oh, that's a good one. That is a really good one. Oh man, I'm also curious. Was this in Oregon? Was this Oregon?
No, this one's actually here in Canada, but it's relatively the same. Like, I mean, there are a lot of consistencies between people in both countries and in states, but like here, again, look outside my window, I see 5 dispensaries. It's what's going on right now, right? Like, I'm 5 minutes walking distance from anyone right here. So again, like it is pretty crazy. Sometimes you kind of look at it and it's like, it seems that as though if the government is getting their tax money, it doesn't matter which business they're getting it from, as long as the tax money is still coming in. Anyways, that's how it seems. Let me not poo-poo the government or anything like that, but in general, in general, that's kind of like what it's looking like. But yeah, his question was, there are a lot of dispensaries opening up with the allure and the promise of, hey, this is the lottery, or hey, I used to smoke back in the day, it'd be great for me to open one up, or whatever it is, right? And a lot of people are seemingly having these ideas. So again, with competition popping up, unlike different retail stores, effectively, at least here, in general, products are the same. Like, I would say it's difficult to say that there are tiers and hierarchies of, let's even just say, flower, right? Out in the world, if you want a white t-shirt, you can go to Walmart, get that white t-shirt. Then you can go to Nike and get a slightly more expensive t-shirt. Then you can go to, I don't know, a Gucci and get a different white t-shirt. And they're all white t-shirts, but they're kind of priced differently, right? Because the branding is there. But similarly to what you said, if somebody can go and get a pack of 10 pre-rolls for $2, more than likely they're probably going to go there, right? So competition is a really difficult thing. So I think that was one of the tricky questions that he had.
That's a good question, and we deal with it hugely in Oregon. Like I said, it's such a big win that we got limited licenses because we've got a lot of retailers out there. But I don't disagree that it is very much a commodity. A pre-roll. X-brand pre-roll, it generally is, a gummy, X-brand gummy is here versus there. It's the same product. But what is that customer experience? And is that customer experience better? Can you make that better? Can you make it easier? Can you make it faster? Can you make it cleaner? Can you make it cooler? We just, I won't name names, but when we were in Arizona, we hit a bunch of dispensaries. And every time I was like, this experience sucks. Like, there was a dispensary, and so they've got your checkout counters. And so the counter, here's like the flower display at each register. They had like 10 registers, and it was weird. So they've got a row of 10 registers, and each register, there's a display of their flower. And then if you wanted a packaged good, there's this wall across the back of the 10 registers. But that wall, all the products is varied. So if you want a gummy, you're here, the gummy may be down there. So then you're walking behind these customers and going, what's that gummy? Can I see that gummy? Okay, well, I want a pre-roll now. And then you walk behind all these customers and then go look at that. It was such a bizarre, too interactive, too slow, awkward experience versus in our mint stores. It's a shop. If you want to shop on your own, great. Everything is on an island. We've got a flower bar that you can walk up to and interact, pull the flower off, smell it, do your thing. All the placards are there. You can shop on your own, or you can have all of the islands are categorically based. And so you're like, hey, I need a pre-roll. The bud tender is on the floor with the iPad, and then you go to the pre-roll case. Every pre-roll option we have is out on display. So we, like Arizona, we'd be like, oh, what do you have for infused pre-rolls? And so they're just reading, I've got Girl Scout cookies, I've got OG Kush, and you're like, can I see the product? Can I see the potency? Is there terp testing on it? What kind of botanical is, it's an infused product. Is it botanical terps? Is it cannabis terps? First of all, they didn't know what the hell I was talking when I asked that question. So education, how well educated are your bud tenders? So there's a lot of layers to that. Ultimately, I guess this is a rambling answer, but the customer experience. What is that customer experience like? So that's how you can differentiate. If your dispensary's here, and it's the same price, and I can get in and I can get out and I can get a really educated bud tender, and there's competition here where it's super awkward. The bud tender doesn't know what the hell is going on. I'm going to store A. Make it easy, quick, same thing. So
right. Awesome. No, that's amazing. So what's next in store for you, and for the other shops and the CPG brands in the next little while?
Yes. Like I said, we're still cautious on the very long-term strategy
Sure.
stuff. We've got a pipeline of that probably the next 10 months. That's pretty baked. We've
Mhm.
got to grow in our Mint location in East Portland here, the 10,000 square foot building. Really cool building. So it's and this has been something we've wanted for since the get-go, and we couldn't find. We've had buildings, identified them, and it fell through when we were making the deal. But finding one that was zoned for this was like the unicorn. Great, just slam dunk. So 10,000 square feet, about 2,000 square feet of retail. And then there's a viewing window that looks into this automated pre-roll machine. This thing does about 10,000 joints a day, fully automated. And so you can look in, see that machine operating, that operator working on that machine. And then there's another viewing window looking into what will be a 63 light LED grow flower room. I know some other states do that, but that's the first facility in Oregon that has like the full meal, the manufacturing. You can see everything from beginning to end. So we're really excited for that. We're going to probably start putting lights in there in the next month or so. So get that online. And then we've got our 6th retail location, which is under the Broadway Cannabis Market brand, another East Side location in a neighborhood called Selwood. It's like a very cute little neighborhood. So we're going to get all that done by the end of the year and see what's in store for 25. It's gonna happen.
Perfect. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Emails, Tony at Broadway-cannabis.com, Tony at mint-cannabis.com, Tony at firedepthcanna.com, Tony at tryfeelgoods.com. I had to say those like 10 times for this to get that all dialed in. And then our social handles, which we get deleted about every other day, which is Mint Cannabis PDX and Try Feel Goods. Our other ones have been deleted. Go Instagram.
Go Instagram. Yay. Tony, thank you very much for hopping on the show. Again, really appreciate your transparency. I think this was an incredibly dense podcast, not in terms of us talking as people, but in terms of information per second, if you will, because there was a lot of nuggets dropped both, on the CPG side and on the retail side. So just wanted to say thank you again for hopping on the show, sharing your wealth of knowledge. And we should do this again very, very soon.
Lovely. Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it. A lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. Thanks to everyone who's listening. I will see you next time. See you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. My name's Brandon Kwan, and I'm the founder of Cannabis Marketing, the #1 marketing agency of choice for dispensaries, both in the United States and in Canada. If you ever want to get in touch with me about any marketing strategies, tips, and tricks, I can definitely help you. Just go visit our website at cannabudmarketing.com. That's CANNABUD marketing.com, or just check the links in the description below. Until next time, talk to you later. Bye.